Today we're talking Aphex Twin. So this is an artist you showed me. So
Yeah.
tell me, when do you first remember hearing about or listening to Aphex Twin music?
When I first started listening to Aphex Twin, I don't really remember. My memory is dog shit. But I would say one of the first memories, I think, goes back to like Odd Future, which is kind of funny because I feel like I said when I learned about Tame Impala was when Tyler the Creator shouted them out. And I don't remember if it was the same thing for Aphex Twin, but also like Frank is like a big fan of Aphex Twin and sometimes like wears their shirts and stuff. And so I think I decided to dive a little deeper when I was like really into Frank Ocean's production to see kind of like what the connection was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
And then now that I think about it, when I started to dive deeper, I started to come across some songs that I had heard before that I thought were really cool, but I didn't really know who it was by. So when I was working at a shoe store at Journeys, they like would play music videos like on the screens, and it would rotate like every month, and they'd pick like 40 like, and it was always a mixture of like emo, like rock. Like
shoe store,
the Journey
music.
Shoe store. Yeah, it's like fucking like Hot Topic. But one time they had the music video for Come to Daddy.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've ever seen that music video before, but it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, probably when I was first kind of getting into Aphex Twin.
Yeah, it has a bunch of pictures of it has a bunch of like kids, but they all have like Richard D. James's like face, and it's like really creepy. And
like
they're all, like
the
playing.
album cover or whatever.
Yeah, exactly, like the album cover, and and not to mention the song is just weird as hell. Like if you've never like listened to Aphex Twin before,
it's a crazy one. If you were I was gonna mention later, but yeah, I think. As far as like that's one of his biggest songs.
Yeah.
And then I like the song. And then also on the album, they have like the different like mixes, and none of them are like the same song at all.
Right. And a fun fact about that one is that it wasn't actually ever on an album. It was only on an EP. And I think I heard somewhere that he actually made that song as a joke.
The Come to
Daddy.
EP?
Yeah. And then it kind of like the record companies that he was with kind of latched onto it and promoted it like a regular song, and then it ended up blowing up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as general, that seems to be one of his, in current day, like most popular and like well-liked releases among his fan base.
Yeah.
It's a pretty accessible EP, which is what I was like for this podcast. I had been thinking. There are so many releases and so many different like lengths, whether it's like the fourth album, the really long one, how long is that? The one with like 40 songs, like an hour and 40 minutes or something.
Yeah, his one from 2001.
Yeah, and then like
that one's almost 2 hours long.
Yeah, drugs or drux or whatever.
Yeah, so that's another thing. So how do you pronounce it?
Well, what I was going to say about that album, because anyone who's listening, they don't can't say the name of the album right off the top of your head. All the names on this album are also I just listen to it, like that's my relationship with the album.
Yeah,
like in all the songs, April 14th, I was just basically like my brain was okay. April 14th,
right?
For like the first how many weeks of like knowing the thing existed, just because it's all kind of random. It doesn't seem,
So I heard that the
music speaks for itself.
Oh, definitely.
But to just my main point that I started with, as far as just the releases, like the official Aphex Twin albums, they're all very good. But as like you said, the Come to Daddy EP, and that's one of the most popular releases. It's interesting to like I'm sure it was just like label stuff and labels asking for albums, but like what as all the music he was making, like, oh, this is going on an album or this is going on an EP, because it's getting released just like all the time. He's making so much of it.
Right.
So I was just I'm curious to know like how he thought about like putting those projects together.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean,
Yeah, that was I said a lot of words for like that kind of small thought. But
no.
sorry.
Nah. I mean, it makes sense. Like, he's released under different names and even under like SoundCloud and his actual releases of Aphex Twin, like something crazy, like over like 300 songs.
Yeah, when I was
like
at
a ridiculous amount.
Amoeba Records the other day to just like look, see, I like to listen to CDs in the car and just grab whatever I can. And just because under the Aphex Twin section, there were side projects under different
That's cool.
names.
They had it there.
But like had no information because I was reading it. So I'm like,
do you know any of the ones that they had there off the top of your head?
Well, before like we started like really getting into this for the podcast, I was only aware of AFX, like that music.
Yeah,
that's the only one I had ever like bothered like throwing in playlists or listening to. And then you mentioned, there's a lot more. So I wasn't sure if it was like another artist or not. I think it was one of the earlier releases. I forgot the name of it. And then I had there was no service because they moved the stupid Amoeba Records to Hollywood Boulevard. Other than Sunset Boulevard, which I thought was a much better location right next to the ArcLight Dome. But so I couldn't. So I was like, I don't even want to like buy this because I didn't know what it was. But it was one. The album cover has waves on it. It's a side project. It's like Poly something land, or I think it was a name I wasn't familiar with. Looked it up after, and it was an Aphex.
Yeah.
But there's just so much music. So
yeah, that goes into something
organizing
else.
it into like these albums and like
right.
Okay, this is going to be an Aphex Twin album, especially because those Aphex Twin albums are so different.
I mean, the first thing that kind of like I thought about when we started to record this podcast was, I should say, the first thing I started thinking about when we started prepping for this was like, the more I learned, I feel like the more I didn't know, and I'm like, holy shit, he has so much fucking music. Like, that was my main takeaway from like kind of learning more about him and stuff is this guy has so much fucking music. And you know what the coolest thing about it is like a lot of it is really good.
Yes.
A lot of it is really top tier stuff. And so that kind of goes with your question of like, what did he decide to put on the albums? Honestly, I'm not even sure because some of the stuff that I listen to that's like under the radar, unreleased, released under different names is just as good as the stuff that he released. And sometimes to me, better. But like, that's just me. I think Aphex Twin is the type of artist and all of his pseudonym names or whatever the fuck you want to call it, like all of his different names, like he really has something for everybody. Like, and there's so many different, like he touches upon so many different like areas in his music that you can find like a good like 40 songs that you're like, wow, this really speaks to me. And it doesn't have to just be Aphex Twin. So it's like most artists, they release or they record a bunch of songs and then they just like release their top, 10 or whatever of that batch of songs. But for him, it's like he just picked. It almost just seemed like he just picked like what he thought would flow well.
Yeah. Also, he's doing a type of music that is like there's so much ground to cover because he was pretty much, I don't know much about that time period of late 80s, early 90s electronic music.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of stands on his own to me. You know, the IDM movement or whatever music, I do not know much about it, but I can't imagine that like he kind of is like above.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know, there's this artists that have a lot of like very good material.
It's like no matter what genre he was gonna be in, like it was gonna be incredible.
Like a very standout like artist. Yeah, you know, Radiohead, whatever.
Right.
Anyone like that.
Like they almost like go above the genre.
Yes. Side note, my very big opinion, or I don't think it's controversial at all, but I like how Paramore like surpassed pop punk. They like came into pop punk, got
that's
super
a good
famous
example.
And like you know, still like pop music. They even went probably like more into pop music, but like the everything they write is like very unique and catchy, and then they just kept getting like bigger.
Yeah.
Even when like the band and like one of the songwriters like left, so like props to Paramore for coming out with the good. Maybe we should do a Paramore episode.
I'd be down.
It's not even one I would have thought of, but that would be a good.
Their
episode.
new music's pretty good too.
All their albums, I think, are like somewhat like good.
Yeah, and I saw a live performance of them. I think it was at Austin City Limits or something. It was like
recently. Yeah.
Very recent, 2022, and it was great. I really want to see them actually, but
They're coming in the summer. Maybe we do a bonus ep, the Paramore concert.
I don't want to shell out the dough. I'm fucking cheap.
Maybe we'll have a Patreon by then. Fund us going to see concerts, the Paramore concert.
That'd be sick.
We could
research.
Recap. Yeah, please.
We'll tell you how it is.
Please, if anybody has more money,
and we'll tell you how
please.
The cool concerts are.
Yeah, you won't even have to go to the concert. You could pay for us to go. We could tell you how you don't have to leave your house.
Yeah,
it'll be great. So anyway, back to the Aphex Twin.
Yep.
So yeah, so much music. So it's all over the place. He's making it. So I guess let's start. I guess with the first one.
Sure.
Or actually. So you kind of got into Aphex Twin. What's like the first kind of stuff you loved, or like, songs, or if it was an album, or you just kind of listen to whatever.
So I guess the more I started getting into him, I started to remember that like fucking core memory of seeing "Come to Daddy," and then I kind of made the connection of like, oh my god, this is the same guy, and so I would say that was like a really big one for me. At first, and then I would say there's a lot of really great ones, but one that really I think resonates with me is like Extal, which is the first one off of his first official album, Selected Ambient Works 85 to 92, I think it is. And I mean, it's just so, the textures like are just so incredibly well blended, and as a drummer, like that beat is like iconic, you know, and you just sound like, it just sounds so futuristic, but that almost came out like almost more than 30 years ago now, and the fact that he could just make something sound so silky and smooth but still bump, you know, still have that nice groove, and like, and it's just like catchy, like bump 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 bump, and I would just listen to that, and like I remember I had a really great memory of like snowboarding and just like putting that in my headphones and just listening to that song and just like sliding down the slopes, and I just felt like it was so perfect, and that's a great one. I would say another good one is... Oh,
wait. Why does that seem... It seems like the most perfect snowboarding music.
It is. It is.
You said... I haven't been listening to Aphex Twin while snowboarding.
Yeah.
But I feel like I should now.
Yeah. If you're going to go snowboarding, listen to Aphex Twin. Just put it in the headphones. Like, I was... You know, my friends had told me, you know, like, oh, you know, make a cool playlist and listen to it while you're going down. And like the first thing I thought of was Aphex Twin. I just seemed to match it, and like,
oh yeah,
just the experience. It's like those fucking 5 gum commercials. Like that's what you feel like.
Yeah, okay.
You're like, how does it feel to chew 5 gum? That's what it feels like. So definitely try it if you get the chance.
Yeah, well, that first album, it was actually kind of interesting listening because it wasn't the first album like I heard from Aphex Twin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first time I probably heard it was, I think you were just playing it in the car, and like for years after, I would try to. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to remember, but you were playing it, and I asked you who it was just because it was just like crazy. It was like a chill sort of beat, but it was very progressive.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember I was like, what is this? He said Aphex Twin. I was like, Aphex Twig.
Yeah.
Aphex Twin. And I wasn't even like sure what you were saying to me or how it would be spelled.
FK Twigs.
Yeah, exactly. And then I must have just heard the name for a bit and decided to go to Amoeba, and I think I had the intention of buying an album from him.
Right.
And I didn't know what to get, and the Richard D. James album was there, and it looked so like crazy, and so creepy. It's like his face, but like edited.
It's like his face, but it's like drawn in this like weird kind of Babadook type style or something. It's really weird.
He has a cool like relationship with his like cover art and himself.
Yeah, and his videos, and that's another thing we could go into. But anyways, just keep going. We'll come back to that later.
Yeah, so I got that. I think it's his third or fourth. The fourth album.
This is Richard D. James, right?
Yes. So that was the first Aphex Twin like album I had ever heard. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I was going to listen to, but
a very strong one.
I absolutely I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is like the coolest shit like I've ever heard. Yeah.
I surprisingly wasn't as familiar. It kind of goes back to he just has so much fucking music. Yes. I wasn't as familiar with that one. I've heard a lot of the songs on it, and I've heard it a couple times. But after going back for this podcast and listening to it the other day, I was like, oh shit. Like it just perfectly encapsulates the mood of his music, I think.
Yeah, the songs, I think it's like a short album. But everything is like the compositions and like
has no fat.
It's done it's done so well. The drums are so tasteful. So he had, been going crazy with drums and experimenting, and he really like will take it back. And some of the it feels like a band could play them. It's like very catchy like melodies, and I don't know. It's like music I've always like thought like I would like, but there was no artist that could do it, and it totally just like filled whatever that like empty gap. So I became like a fan. Obviously, I love that CD.
Right.
And so you look up Aphex Twin, and whatever websites say his best work is, and the first one, the Select Ambient Works, would come up, and then with the drugs when we were drunks, whatever.
Yeah.
So I went and listened to the first one, and it was so different. It was almost like I didn't know what to expect, especially because it said ambient. So I just thought it was gonna be like an ambient album, but it wasn't at all.
Yeah, you think it's gonna be Selected Ambient Works?
Yeah, nothing. It was nothing like that.
Yeah. Well,
so
here's another side note too: is like the first Selected Ambient Works is not that ambient. The second one, which we could talk about later, is very ambient.
Yeah, it's the most ambient thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
One of the most ambient things I've ever heard in my life.
It's quiet. Well, but keep going.
Yeah, but anyway, that first album. So it was definitely different. I didn't like love it initially, the whole thing, but it had like such like that kind of legendary. I kept playing it and like picked out whatever songs I like, and it's just so fun to like, because there's like so little electronic music like that at that time,
even still today.
And like hearing Aphex Twin music, I would assume it came post like Daft Punk, because Daft Punk is like it's very big, it's very famous, very straightforward.
You think it would have inspired something like this from some crazy bastard, but...
Yeah. So it's like super impressive, like especially like drums, the relationship with drums in music and in pop music in general. Very, less is more, steady, and this is like fuck those rules or whatever, and I can't even think of like what he was really like inspired by.
Yeah,
I guess he was inspired, by like the new technology of the time, and then just kind of going into all of that like pretty hard.
Yeah, so he's actually pretty secretive about a lot of the ways that he makes music. Mm-hmm. And what I learned is that a lot of his releases are from different like times in his life where because he's always constantly making music.
Yeah.
So he pulls from different times. I think his albums are a little bit different, but like especially like a lot of the stuff that he like put on SoundCloud and stuff. And like his last release, like people are saying that he made that like 10 years ago. And that he's just been sitting on it. So he's gone through a lot of different like methods and like eras and like ways to make music. It's super all of them are fucking creative. Like he started out doing analog instruments, not mostly just like analog instruments like TR-707
beat
and
machines and
beat
stuff.
machines, synths, like analog synths and stuff like that. And then I think it was either Richard D. James or the one after that he made with no instruments. He made it completely like on a Mac.
Oh, Richard D. James. I think I read that about that one.
Yeah, so he's like for like, years he's like doing all this analog synth stuff, and then he's just like, yeah, fuck that. And then he just like fucking makes one like on his Mac. And so he's always constantly like changing, or like when it comes to his 2001 album like Drug Use, he's actually was like using that piano that was like playing itself, right?
Yeah.
And he was like programming the piano to play itself, and he was also messing with like tones and like ways to get weird sounds out of a piano, like so
live instruments.
Yeah, live instruments.
I think that is one of the coolest. When I read that for the first time, I think I was reading about Avril 14th, I don't know, like years ago. And I only like remember really seeing like those types of pianos at like airports or
the ones that play themselves, yeah.
Yes, or hospitals or something. And just like, he composed, because you just hear the song, so I just assumed that it was something he composed. I mean, he performed on a piano. And also another thing that I noticed, and it used to annoy me, and I would like turn the song off thinking it was like something in my car, but there's a squeak from the self-playing piano.
Oh,
and yeah. I think it mentions it on the Wikipedia page.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's definitely in the song, but like that is such a cool idea, because you could compose like stuff through MIDI like easily and have it on, but then to have it go out and like play on like live instruments to get a real that is piano. Like as a producer, like that's, I don't know why more people don't do that. They'll like compose on the computer and then have musicians play it live, but then it's just a whole different thing. So I'm glad he even like made a sequel that was released as an EP. So like I said, like I don't know why like some stuff are really like a sequel to an album is released as an EP.
Yeah, there's not a lot of logic behind the releases, but I too think that's amazing that he could like, that he
super creative
had that idea and to be that creative, and that's really his legacy. I think is just being extremely creative and like just pushing the boundaries in every regard.
A true artiste.
He's a true artiste for sure.
True artiste
for sure. And a lot of his shit's really awesome. So yeah, I think another thing that's really sick is like his artwork, which you kind of touched upon. But do you have any like? So you said that Richard D. James was like the first time that you saw his artwork. So since then, have you seen any like cool videos or like other album covers that you thought were really dope?
I haven't watched like much of like his music videos. I've seen the Come to Daddy like video. Is it like very old? Is there one on YouTube that's just like super old?
Yeah, so that's another thing about his videos is like none of them are in like fucking HD. Like,
dude, I think that's kind of cool. It reminds me of like watching like music videos on TV.
It's like someone
ago.
Yeah, it's like someone nobody ever re-uploaded them. Like when they first whoever first put it on there from
like
their hard drive,
YouTube
the
time.
director, like nobody's ever re-uploaded it since then.
It's like the sound's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something cool about that. It's like
it's cool.
Those types of videos are going to become like the new tape.
No,
what's like cassette, whatever.
What's trippy about it and what adds to the artwork of it is like the fact that it's like now it's all like like in like 240p and stuff, and it's just like really bad quality. But like also like when you watch the videos, you can tell that like a ton of effort went into like making the video. So you're like, it's like you're like tripping. You're like, why does it look like this? Like this is a high.
Well, you take anything
produced,
like, if you're uploading, something that's on TV, like say The Real World. Yeah. And there's a YouTube, someone like uploaded, like ripped it off like TV and uploaded it to YouTube in 2005 or whatever. It would like look similar to that. It's like an HD thing.
Yeah.
But, rappers were doing that for a while where they were, just those beats where it's just like clipping, like they ate it, like the and it's just like buzzing.
Yeah. Do you have like an example?
I think like XXX, whatever his name.
Oh yeah. I
think whatever song he popped off with, kind of. I wasn't like super like listening to all those, dude, but I remember it was almost like
their
a
production
meme.
is super big. And
it was like a
clipping
meme to
and,
like and 100 gex. They kind of make their stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that'd be cool if it's like people start uploading like their music videos into like people will sometimes do a music video on film and make it like squared rather than like widescreen, because that's how televisions used to be. Like going back to uploading YouTube music videos 240p with like everything distorted.
That'd be sick.
Just like, what's that one dude? Cemetery, like that. YouTube videos.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that and like just how there's like this whole kind of like new era of music that's like it's not lo-fi.
Clipping.
It's not lo-fi. It's like clipping, and it's like just like loud, and it's like it's kind of like the same way that I feel like when punk came out, like in the early days, that it was kind of like loud, like it didn't matter how it sound, like it wasn't trying to sound like clear, like it was just trying to sound like really big and like crazy. Like that's kind of the vibe I get from like people like 100 gex and like Cemetery, and they're almost using the computer to like get that energy, and like that to me is really cool.
Yeah, because you could get like clipping sounds and then like mix them well into like, which is like
it becomes part of the music.
But even Aphex Twin,
is
like crazy.
He was doing that
bass.
before anybody even fucking thought of that, and he's literally doing that shit.
So, what do you know of drum and bass? What do you think of it?
Oh, drum and bass.
Because he's as like a pioneer of drum and bass. But so I was kind of aware of the genre like long before I'd ever like heard of Aphex Twin, because I don't know if it had around like the dubstep time, there were like a lot of people who were into drum and bass. So I remember like people who were into electronic music, they would throw that out like often. I don't know if anyone ever told me about Aphex Twin, but like electronic music had such like a bad name around that time. I was like, okay, I'm not going to check any of this out.
Is this like when Skrillex came out?
Yeah. So it was that time.
Yeah, I didn't want anything to do with
like
electronic music, which was probably not beneficial, but also at the time, it's like the only thing we knew was like LMFAO and like Skrillex.
Well, yeah, we were so young at that time. It's not like we would know about like
that was like 6th grade.
Yeah. But so yeah, drum and bass. So
yeah, what do I know about it?
As a drummer,
I guess
the the stuff.
I come from it at a weird approach because I never had that background in electronic music until I got older. But I was always a drummer first, and I got introduced to it more formally, I think, from Jojo Mayer, who's like a really famous drummer. If you haven't checked out his stuff, definitely check it out. But he's an iconic drummer that basically took drum and bass music and like executed it like on drum set. So, which is insane. Like if you think about like the like most complex like licks of drum and bass, like he can literally play them. He's a very famous drummer for doing that. Mm-hmm. So that was my first impression of it. But like the style of his playing, like that was my first introduction to drum and bass. So I was kind of like, ooh, like I've never heard this before, but like this sounds fucking crazy. Like I want to hear some like music of it. And then I, started to listen to people like Aphex Twin, so. But I don't really know too many drum and bass artists other than like Aphex Twin and I would say like Music.
Which was back to like.
And Square Pusher. Okay. Square Pusher is a good one. Yeah. So it's a really glitchy type drum and bass, and that's the type of shit that I like. I want to know more about it though.
Yeah.
Oh, another side note is like that. He is a pioneer. Aphex Twin is a pioneer of drum and bass, and before that, where the drum and bass really started forming was in this music I think called jungle.
Oh yes.
From England.
So
they all came up in the jungle scene. Yeah, so
I'll just say real quick, reading about this, there were all these like genres that, and I did not dive into any of the genres that I was saying that he was inspired by. Now it's coming kind of coming back to me, but like I never even like heard of. So like could you like kind of explain like what this music is?
Aphex came up in the jungle scene. And jungle is a type of music, a type of electronic music, rave music from the 90s in England specifically, that would basically take the type of breakbeats that you typically think of with drum and bass. You know how they take the breakbeat of soul records and they speed it up?
Yes.
So jungle was like the first pioneers of like speeding up break beats and then putting like a 4 on the floor behind it.
Okay.
And then getting like the woo, yeah. But then they would
you just doing that like I could like exactly think,
yeah.
I've heard those songs.
Yeah. But it would get dark. Like this was at the same time jungle was coming up, like it was coming up in the underground rave scene, and the underground rave scene was first popping off. So they kind of coincided at the same time. So like a lot of stuff's pretty fucking heavy, and then it kind of leads into that drum and bass of getting even like more complex. So that's where, and that's
any jungle songs or artist recommendations. Let us know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
not from you, from the listeners.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Please let us know.
Yes, please.
Jungle. Everything I've heard from it is like really dope. And it's one of those genres that, especially in Southern California, is like basically non-existent and kind of lost in time. Like only people who like actually really like enjoy music would even know what jungle is.
Yeah.
So yeah, let us know.
So besides drum and bass, because he kind of starts getting so the first 2 albums.
Yeah, so the
also
ambient
like
works.
So strange, I think, how like you go from releasing, the select ambient works and then going to the second one. It just seems so like strange, but bold, I guess. I don't know how successful that first one had made him. I guess it was a new type of music, so he must have been one of the most popular artists. But that second like ambient album, to just drop that as your second album, like I wouldn't even know like who is this for? Yeah. Like who's gonna buy this?
This is another thing about Aphex Twin is like he is somebody who truly to his core gives 0 fucks. Like that's what I've really realized.
He's a true artiste.
Yeah, it goes back to the true artist thing. He literally gives no fucks. Like, you thinking about, like, who would do that? Who would, like, you're, like, really starting to heat up. Like, you're really starting to become, like, a popular artist. And, like, which, you know, you put out selected ambient work, starts to get a lot of traction. And then the next thing you put out is, like, just, like, a literally, like, completely ambient album that kind of deviates from what you were starting. Like,
Yeah.
I think he didn't even think about it. He's just probably just like, I like this. This is what I've been making lately. I've been inspired by ambient music, and this is what I'm going to put out.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah. He almost doesn't care about money, it seems like, which is ironic because of how successful he is.
He doesn't, I mean, too much. He doesn't really seem to perform often.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
And when he does perform,
It's that fucking
a lot of times he
Coachella.
doesn't even play.
It's that fucking Coachella, which is the most
Yeah.
expensive thing in the world.
I know. The one time he plays, he's literally my bucket list artist. The one time he plays at the fucking $600 Coachella. And he hasn't played here in years. And years before that or years after that. So I'm hoping he comes back and does a regular show. I'd love to see him. Imagine seeing him at the Bowl.
Yeah. Any venue. But
Yeah.
the bowl would be pretty nuts.
That'd be a good one.
Any artist should just roll through the bowl. That's if you ever have a chance to go to the Hollywood Bowl, do it. Legendary venue,
Good
great
times.
sets.
They let you bring in your own alcohol.
Yes, alcohol and food.
Massive dub.
Yes, and basically even if they're like too big to play the bowl, they just kind of like to. It's like a thing. It's like a Los Angeles staple. Everybody's played there. The Beatles have played there. Who have we seen there? Roots, Hiatus
Many
Coyote,
people.
Flying Lotus, System of a Down,
I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Dead and Company.
Tell some good Bowl stories.
Yeah. So, the Hollywood Bowl, a good bowl story. I saw Corey Feldman last time I was at the bowl. That was pretty entertaining. I went to go see Steve Martin and Martin Short at the Hollywood Bowl. And right when the show is starting, who else but Corey Feldman is getting escorted to his box seat, which was shared with a different party. And I don't think he liked that. So he had the usher seat him to an empty box, which the usher did because, it's Corey Feldman. We've all seen The Goonies. We've all seen Stand By Me. We've all what's the other one? License to Drive with the other Corey. Yeah, we might just do a Corey Feldman. I mean, he makes music now. We should just probably do a Corey Feldman episode soon. He must have like 3 albums by now, which is pretty crazy. He might just like make his like masterpiece like pretty. He's like on like a pretty like decent like schedule. He performs often. I think he did a show last February on 2/2/22 at the Whiskey A Go Go. I did not go. That might have been a weekday, but I mean he's still at it. He's still. I don't know. I don't know if he has the Angel Band anymore. I don't know if he could afford them. He might just be with a regular band, but yeah, okay. So I just started talking about Corey Feldman.
Oh,
the
sick.
whole time. we might have to do a Corey Feldman episode. 'Cause he's like releasing like his 3rd album or something.
I'm down. I feel like it's just kind of tragic.
Feldman?
It's kind of sad. I feel bad for him.
Yeah, but also he's like, I mean, he's out there. Thank you.
Yeah.
He was at the Whiskey earlier, and he was on Sirius XM recently. I think he was on Eddie Trunk show, which who knows what the hell they were fucking talking about.
Yeah, Corey Feldman, Eddie Trunk. If you don't know who Eddie Trunk is, he's this fucking. I guess you can call him
busiest music nerd.
He was the original Anthony Fantano. He loves that 80s rock shit, but he was on that show
That
metal show. Yeah. That metal show was such an interesting show. That was
it
such
was
a good
cool
one.
because it was like a rock and roll show.
Mm-hmm.
But then you kind of realize that like that kind of like thinking killed the genre of rock and roll.
Yeah, a little bit. It definitely became a little bit of an echo chamber, maybe.
Because you'd say he's like the biggest like rock and roll like journalist, like whatever media like personality.
Right.
You ever looked at like his 10 like essential like albums?
No.
It's like stupid. Like Buck Cherry is in there.
Yeah, probably like Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah, I don't know how he feels about them, but that's sort of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
With like the essential.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many like good rock bands that he doesn't acknowledge. We should call in. He takes calls all the time and ask him why he's never repped like King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard.
Yeah.
It's like they're playing the Hollywood. How much bigger could they be?
Why he hasn't listened to Lonerism?
Yeah.
No, for reals. That's true. Yeah, I feel like they're older. They're of a different era, and they don't understand the way rock music has gone.
You should say that too. Like, you don't understand.
You don't understand, man. You're a boomer.
You're not understanding what it's happening. You're confused.
Yeah, exactly. Go home. But
yes. Yeah. Aphex Twin.
Yeah. Oh, before we stop talking about the Hollywood Bowl, the last famous person I saw there was John C. Reilly.
Oh shit! Yeah,
when we saw Fleet
yeah.
Foxes.
That's funny. That didn't even come to my mind. I was like, I didn't even. Oh, go on about John C.
There's not much to say.
We said hey guys, and it sounded like him.
Yeah. And there's a secret area. I don't know if you want to put it on blast.
No, don't.
Okay.
Don't.
It's a super secret.
Don't. But Hollywood Bowl, legendary
there's famous
venue.
People there.
Yeah. So Aphex Twin, dude, that would be a great Hollywood Bowl show. Now that we're onto the bowl,
it would.
But yeah, he doesn't do. I was watching a live set of his preparing for this. I just kind of.
That's a whole nother fucking rabbit hole. Dude, his live shows.
I remember while first kind of getting into Aphex Twin, I had like kind of different phases. I would play his albums when I worked at Jimmy John's. This is how I learned about how like crazy and like different each song could be on an album. Because you're first listening, you're gonna throw something on, it's later or whatever, and I just play accessible stuff, but it's still stuff I like. And I would throw it on an album thinking that like every song like would be like Flim or whatever. And then all of a sudden I hear like the loudest like drum and bass like
yeah.
So I have to like obviously, change. Yeah. But so unpredictable, and he really goes like crazier in that Drunks album. And the compositions are so good. It's like he's been making all this music, and compositions really like click like magic on Richard D. James, and then I guess that's his role, because that's like Window Liquor, Come to Daddy, and then Drunks right there. So he was on a pretty like crazy roll. That's with good music and very popular music. Window Liquor, one of the most popular Aphex Twin songs.
Great song.
Crazy song. Crazy produced. I always thought like it sounded so bizarre. And
that one has that one is a perfect example of like the samples sound almost like shit, but he literally makes them amazing. And he makes it into like his most popular song.
Like the vocal sample, they're like loud in the mix.
They're like crazy.
Yeah. Which it made me like very interested to like listen to the song over and over again.
Yeah, but it's so catchy. And then when you listen closer, you're like, whoa, these are weird ass samples.
Yeah. Great song. And if I'm remembering this correctly, I think for Discovery, that was like a big song that Daft Punk was inspired by as far as like an overall tone.
Yeah, that's what you told me.
Did I tell you that already?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like I would never hear it would never think that between the two albums, but
when you say it, it makes sense.
yeah, they got something.
Therefore,
out
it
of
is true.
But yeah, Window Licker and great. People would ask me when I play that song, like, oh, what is this? Like, that was one that like people would ask me about.
Definitely.
Yeah. Even the way it starts out, it's just like drums doing all that crazy.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I'm sure that some of those were just like worked in like live instrument samples.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the thing where like you can literally sit here all day trying to dissect how he got certain sounds, but there's really no fucking way to tell.
And I'm sure he did it all sorts of ways.
You know, he has synesthesia.
The seeing color thing?
Yeah. He can
Do you
see
think it's
sounds.
Yeah. Is that rare? Because
I don't have it.
yeah, I used to talk about that when we were kids.
Yeah, but like, did you guys really have it, or was it like edgy? Like, oh, like I see blue right now. Like, fuck.
No. Like, I didn't know the word for it, but I don't know. Like the brown sound, like this, like kind of tone.
You got the brown tone.
We would talk about this.
You hit the brown note.
Yeah. And then, I mean, like sixth grade, sixth grade, or whatever that time was.
Be funny if you guys are learning songs. You're just like, oh, you just hit brown, blue, green, yellow. Oh,
yeah.
For sure.
Well, I feel the same way about sleep paralysis. They say sleep paralysis, like a super small percentage. But like I've met so many people who like have had sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I've had
like,
it.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was rare. I thought that was like highly common.
The number must be false, but the number, like the percentage I heard was like super low, where it would be like you should be like a billionaire, like that, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, another crazy thing is, speaking about dreams, that Selected Ambient Works Volume 2 was inspired by his lucid dreaming experiences. And he would make songs based off his experiences in lucid dreaming. So and that's where that one comes from.
He seems to be very in touch in like with like general vibe and moment, and just like kind of letting it happen then.
Yeah, because he has the skills, because he's put in so much time and effort into learning these things naturally, like, you know, how to use these instruments and make these sounds and compose. And then like when he gets like his artistic expression, he can like make something amazing.
Yeah, because like on that first one, he was like composing stuff. It's like the 80s and stuff that makes it onto that album.
Yeah, like literally,
right?
Like the earliest is like 85. You know, one of his first songs he released when he was 16. Like that's cool. One of the Aphex Twin songs. That's like a normal like ass song in his catalog. He was like 16.
Yeah, a lot of those great ones like start writing very young. Like, you know, whoever, the Beatles, whatever.
Yeah.
Radiohead, were they in high school together?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right?
I think they grew up together.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, just like, yeah, so many different songs. Do you have a favorite album?
Probably the one. It always rotates with me. I feel like with Aphex Twin, because there's just so much there, and I really truly enjoy basically all of it.
That was one thing I gathered from like really getting into all of it.
Yeah.
And like the side projects.
But
yeah, like you said earlier, it's all like good.
I would say if I had to pick a favorite, well, I'll say currently I've been really enjoying his SoundCloud stuff.
Oh, yeah. Talk about that, because I have not heard of any of that.
Yeah, so I was listening to that today, and he's released... I haven't counted. I wasn't following it when it was happening, but what I heard was he's released basically like 200 songs on SoundCloud. Like full songs that just never made it to albums, but not because they're bad again. Just they're literally like great Aphex Twin tracks. There's some that like... And there's some remixes on there too. And he didn't even release it as Aphex Twin. He released it as User And then it was numbers,
Yeah.
and the numbers were his birthday. and he was not like, hi, I'm Richard like it was like user blah 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 started releasing music that kind of sounded like Aphex Twin.
Yeah.
And had some Aphex remixes, and then like the fan base was like, holy shit, like it's him, like he's
That's
dropping
cool.
music, and he's released like over 200 songs. And so I've been listening to people's curated playlists on YouTube.
Yes.
And taking the stuff from his SoundCloud dump, that's what they call it, his SoundCloud dump, and turning it into like an album, basically, like a full-length album. And one that I've really been enjoying, that I really enjoyed today, was Selected Ambient Works 1.5.
Okay.
On YouTube. So that's a sick one. Great tracks.
Okay. I'll have to check. I mean, that's a lot of music. And
so much.
He has a lot of officially released music in general.
But it's fun. It's fun to listen to because it's all good.
That's like very cool. I wish like more artists will do that. He just seems very well. Okay, two things. One, I guess he must be like pretty comfortable like financially. And at that point, if you could just kind of, be home and make whatever music without having to like operate around a career and then promoting like your brand and trying to sell yourself and sell tickets constantly, to be able just to like release, love music, make music, release music that's like as free as you could be. That's amazing that he's able to have that kind of career. Yeah, and another thing, I wish like it's also like very like forward thinking. I feel like a lot of legacy artists now, you make an album, you spend a few years into putting an album out, and then once it's out, you sort of have a big tour scheduled, and there's a lot of time put into like one release. But that sort of it's kind of easier to make albums now, and that's just with King Gizzard and and the Lizard Wizard, and in like rappers releasing so much music, it just seems more like that's the way to do things. Yeah, and then he does it on another level as far as like, I'm not even like I don't need to really even promote any shows. Like I'm just kind of doing it for the love of the game. Yeah, you look at bands that like Metallica, or people that sell a lot of tickets, Red Hot Chili, whatever. It's like, okay, you guys are all talented, but they need to kind of like sell this brand to like sell the stadium.
It's like a machine, it's a brand.
Yeah, but like
it's much more than just music.
Get more without having to like release something that you need to play in a stadium, where they could probably make like 3 albums in a year. That's all very experimental, and like test and like take their musicianship to like another level. Right. And he kind of really truly lives by that, like true artist. Like, yeah, it doesn't need to be my biggest hit. No matter, I wish more talented artists did.
I feel like with him, you really get the sense of like, no matter if he was literally like poor or if he was a billionaire, he would be doing the exact same thing that he's doing right now.
Yes.
In a room, making music, experimenting. No matter if he was famous or not, like he would just be doing this. Like you can just tell. And yeah, that goes back to like the SoundCloud thing, like how he just like went on this kind of popular music website under a random name with no announcements and just released basically his entire catalog and everything that he's been working on, for no reason other than it's like just a place for him to dump it and for fans to kind of like dig through it and find what they like. And I mean, there's so many great lists out there. Like, definitely check out some mixes from his SoundCloud work. I think the SoundCloud page was actually deleted too.
Oh, after being discovered?
I think so. Yeah. So, that's a good one. I want to give a shout out to probably my favorite song by him, which is, and it's hard for me to pronounce because it's on that Drugs album, but I think I think it's Michael St. Michael.
Oh,
St.
yes,
Michael's
love
Mount.
That song's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably my all-time favorite Aphex Twin song. It's literally incredible. I mean, it's like Master of Puppets level, like epic.
Yeah.
The way it switches between parts, the way it switches between beats and textures and samples, and the way it ends where it's like glitching out like in this like insane way, like the master is almost like glitching in and out, and like it almost sounds like a movie like in a song.
Like he's getting more experimental, but then also like it's very like mature,
Extremely.
and like there's a lot like to it. Like it's not just like, oh, let's get crazy like composition. Like it works very well, and it's great.
That song
It's a
just
great
really
song.
resonates with me. It's an amazing song. It has so many great parts, and you can just listen to it and find new things in it like all the time. And that's just one of his thousands, of fucking minutes of songs. So it's like it's that type of Stanley Kubrick level stuff where like you start thinking about little details, and then it will like spawn into like ideas, and then you think about little details and like how it was like this bigger idea. I don't know. It goes back to the artiste thing for me. That song really opens me up, I feel like.
And you have to think, how many songs had he made like before he made that one?
Yeah, many.
Like to get to that,
and then thousands probably.
Yeah,
and like literally thousands.
And it's like so cool to where like on the same album that and like Avril like 14.
Yeah, completely different.
Yeah, that's one of the coolest things about that, how different it gives off like especially because it's so long, like the White Album, like kind of a vibe. Yeah.
That's cool that you say that, because I heard that with this album, in terms of like the Aphex Twin fan base, I don't know much about the fan base. It's not something I followed. I'm a huge Aphex Twin fan, but I've never been in the fan
Aphex
base.
Twin fan I know.
Yeah, but there's a pretty heavy fan base for him because he's
like a legacy artist.
Yeah.
Most music like fans.
Yeah. And I guess with drugs and I want to say I heard it pronounced because it's drug and then it's like QS, right?
Okay.
So I've heard it pronounced recently drug use, like drug use.
Okay, that's ringing a bell to me.
Yeah, like drug use.
Just because I'm sure I think he was maybe asked about it.
And he said that or something.
Or I think he said I will like drug use is like I will not promote like drug use or something.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, dude, that's fucking clever. That's crazy.
Well, like I don't know.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah. So, one thing with the fan base, how it was received when it came out. Some people love it. They love the variability of it, and then other people don't like that it's not as cohesive. They feel like it's a bunch of his songs that he just pulled together in this random way, like. Kind of like his SoundCloud dump. Like, hey, I have a bunch of songs. Like, I'm just gonna put on this 2-hour long.
Do you know what
album.
happened? Do you know this why it's that way? It's that way for a very specific reason. So
enlighten me.
I will drop some fat knowledge on this fat couch. So he was making music, had all these songs, had them on an MP3 player. And left the MP3 player on a flight, maybe on a plane, or probably a plane. I can't imagine him riding a bus, maybe a taxi. Who knows? So he figured the music would make its way onto the internet anyway. So he was just kind of threw it, whatever he wanted, onto the album and dropped, that kind of a way.
Yeah, that rings a bell now that you mention it.
Yeah. And as far as 2001, and he seems pretty hip to technology, and I think what he said about it was he kind of just takes the songs that he likes off of an album anyway, and will delete the ones he doesn't like, and you could do this with this album, which is kind of cool. But then I also like listening to it in order and hearing all.
Yeah.
You know,
I like it.
Yeah, it's very like, I don't know what he expected out of it. Hearing like a lot of Aphex Twin music. So this was probably like besides because that's the biggest song. Yeah. But like the album itself, I had heard, Richard D. James, Come to Daddy EP, and the first album, the Selected Ambient Works, before I dove into this one. But I remember just like, it's so crazy. I couldn't believe like how it was even like getting crazier, like to me. And like some of the best songs like from him and most mature songs, it was kind of like amazing, Mm-hmm. But yeah,
to hear his progression, I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah. So then, we haven't really talked about that last album because he made he was like on somewhat of, as far as like official Aphex Twin album releases. And then there's like that's 2001. His next album does not come until the year of 2014.
Yeah. So I think there was a Cheetah EP in between then.
Well, yeah, there are whatever EPs or singles, but I just yeah.
But that whole side of his catalog, admittedly, I'm not as familiar with. I've heard a couple times, but I haven't really gotten the chance to dive into it. I remember when Cyro came out.
The newer stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like that's maybe what you might have been playing when I first heard of him.
Yeah, because when Cyro came out was when I was listening to him already.
Yeah.
And it was like this big fucking deal. It was like, oh my God, Aphex Twin just dropped an album.
Yeah,
holy shit.
It's been so long.
Yeah. And it was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was looking like kind of back on it, preparing for this podcast, and it seemed like like his fans all seemed to very much like the album, and what he said was this will be the poppiest like he'll get, kind of a thing. I remember throwing songs from this album onto playlists when I was kind of getting into him initially, just because like I wanted to hear it all, and I don't know, but like these were songs I think I even ended up like taking off. I don't know. It might have been like the first song on it, the single.
They're abrasive.
Mini pops. And like there's like cool grooves and stuff, but I feel like the compositions, like I don't know. It was almost too creepy.
Yeah.
Like too
it's
like,
abrasive.
Yeah, like the sounds, like the bass sounds.
I feel like
wah, 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 wah,
I feel like him saying that it's his most populous album is like a joke, because I feel like his last releases have been the most avant-garde things he's released.
Well, Cyro, like that's not what I like initially thought of the music when first hearing it. So reading that was like interesting. Like, oh, this is the poppiest, which is like I understand maybe because he kind of goes back to like his earlier sounds on like his first like kind of two albums. Also, we didn't really talk about the third album. With it's like it sounds very similar to the second album, the ambient album, but then there's
I Care Because You Do.
Yes. So that one's a very interesting.
That one has one of my favorite tracks on it.
What,
Alberto Besalm. That's one of my favorite tracks by him.
Yeah. Going through the music for this podcast.
Come On You Slags is good too. That's a good one.
Yeah, that one is good. It like gave me like almost like nostalgia, but almost like I got very sad. I almost had to like skip it because like
you got too in the feels. You're like, fuck, this is like going to like that. He's an artiste.
I haven't listened to it since like before the pandemic.
It's like
it's like there's like it's like people you don't talk to anymore. It's just like time has passed.
It's almost like you get put into that same headspace that you were in when you were like enjoying it, and you just think about life since then.
Yeah, it's like
that's why music's dope. Yeah,
it's strange how it like has that effect on you,
because it's like the art is one thing, but also like your headspace and your memories at the time are like another thing that you attribute in. Kind of goes back to that thing that artists say is like when they release music, it's not theirs anymore. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, but on that album specifically, just quickly because we've been talking for a while, to put it in like a very small, so there's the ambient works, the second one, the ambient album. The compositions on that third album sound very similar to the ambient works on the second album, but then with all the different like with the drums like thrown back on top of it. It sounds like yeah.
I was gonna say I Care Because You Do sounds to me like where Aphex Twin starts formulating into like this machine. Like this is like my sound. Like that's kind of the first album to me where it's like, okay, I released like all these things. I went in a couple different directions, but like this is my sound now.
It's kind of like maybe like Hard Day's Night for the Beatles after the first two album.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is the one every song's I mean, obviously not for Aphex Twin, it's not the same case, but every song's for the Beatles, all originals. We're the biggest thing on earth coming out with. It's like this is our like we are the fucking, and that's what this one sounds like. Yeah,
they're like it's like that. This album
coming
to me,
into your own.
Yeah, both of those albums to me, or you could say like Toxicity for like System of a Down. It's like. It's where they really come into their sound. Like this is, and you just hear the confidence, and you hear it kind of like going on other records. It's more, this is the sound now. I'm gonna refine it. So yeah, that's the vibe I get from I Care Because You Do. Cool album cover too. Really fucking creepy. Probably the creepiest one.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems more cartoonish than the Richard D. James
one. I got them two mixed up at first, but now I Care Because You Do is the one that's like drawn, and Richard D. James is the one that's like photographed.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
But like that album is great too. That's like a fan favorite, obviously.
Yeah.
It's not as like I think Richard D. James has a better flow.
It's more accessible too, Richard D. James.
Yes, it was very good. Like first one to listen to.
Yeah.
I Care Because You Do. It's like he's going for it, and the sounds are pretty wild, like on it. So I like that he's like going for it. But yeah. One
other thing, other little factoid. Because there's so many with him. This is like
you could talk about it. We could do another fucking podcast about him probably.
Maybe one day I would like to revisit this. Because diving this is going into another thing, but like from this podcast, diving into his music has like opened up like a new world for me for like one of my favorite artists that I haven't like realized. Like I didn't know about the SoundCloud thing. I didn't know about like I just like heard like this shit on Spotify and I really enjoyed it and I would always come back to it.
Yeah.
And I was always a huge fan. But now that I dive deeper into his stuff, like I just feel like there's so much there. There's so much to keep going, and I see myself listening to more in the future. So yeah, we'll definitely have to revisit it.
Yeah, so much. Yeah. So
But anyways, let me
shout outs.
Let me give the factoid before. But basically, the reason why his brand became his face is because he said that there was an unwritten rule with like electronic artists that you're supposed to let the music speak for yourself and you're not really supposed to show your face. And so he decided to make the whole Aphex Twin brand like his fucking face.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Electronic music is so interesting because there's so much of it. And everyone just kind of seems to do it for the love of the game.
Also, it's fucking bigger than ever. Ever.
It's somehow like the biggest thing that it's like, it's not like mainstream.
It's the biggest thing no one talks about. Dude, Deadmau5 and Cascade sold out the Coliseum.
Yeah.
It's sold out already. It's been like it's been on sale for like 2 days.
Yeah. I don't know.
You're like,
I've been looking at those tickets all year, so
they put. I didn't know that they were out already. I thought there was like they just released the tickets. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure they're still on. I've been looking at them.
Oh shit!
I didn't know. I might have just gone by my
Regardless,
anyone wanna go.
they did sell out.
Oh shit!
And fucking Cascade and Deadmau5 playing the Coliseum sold out is like, how many artists can sell at the Coliseum? And you turn on the news or you turn on. Yeah, I guess Rammstein it didn't sell out, but it was probably fucking badass.
Yeah,
but it definitely didn't.
Only
sell
the
out.
biggest. Yes.
Yeah, but like
it's huge.
You don't really hear much about EDM like in the zeitgeist, but it's there. It's a beast. It's just
the most
sitting there.
As far as like, I mean, it definitely has like an influence in popular music and like pop music.
Yeah,
have,
it
like,
does.
Whatever,
Pretty big influence.
Calvin Harris, Diplo stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
Its heyday really seemed to be like those early 2010s though. Like that's when Calvin Harris was like Skrillex, Deadmau5. Yeah, all those guys.
Now it feels
so
less
different than
DIY-y.
I don't even like know. There's so much like of it. There's people that still even go out and listen to like. There's like those dubstep. It's like where they're like headbanging the whole time.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
There's many different subgenres. We should actually have somebody in here to tell us more.
Yeah, because like one thing I didn't know. I thought people might be annoyed about this episode with Aphex Twin. I do not know the world of electronic music, but also I feel like there are only so many artists that like have a catalog like this.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of what I know.
He transcends electronic music, but also electronic music is cool. Which is like the theme of
the podcast.
But yeah,
we're gonna hit like those artists
for sure.
But yeah, I'll just as far as my recs, if you've somehow listened to this and have not really listened to Aphex Twin, Richard D. James, and then Drux or whatever.
Yeah.
And the sequel, most definitely. I don't think it's called that. I think it's called something like music, like electronic music performed by live instruments or something. It's the EP, the black cover.
The EP. It's black and it has like some text, like code type text on it.
Yeah,
and it's mostly piano music.
That. It's like
very good.
It's like the live. There's like drums.
Yeah,
I wonder if he's like even doing what's that one? The robot dude, the dude that makes those robotic instruments that play.
Oh,
We Were Promised Robots.
Oh,
what was it called?
I just saw them too. Fuck. Captured by Robots.
Captured by Robots.
Yeah.
Do you think
we
it's
were
like
promised we were promised jetpacks, like the fucking indie band.
That was like the band that made me not want to listen to indie music. I was like, if this is what indie music is like, I don't want to listen to it.
If you listen to We Were Promised Jetpacks before Radiohead, like, I'm sorry, it's not all indie music has to offer. But
yeah, I wonder if they're still a band. They
probably. They're in like Scotland or some shit, wherever they're from. No disrespect. I don't really know them that much.
We don't like them, but
yeah,
no disrespect.
I don't know that much enough about them, but yeah.
But yeah, anything else?
Okay, I have one massive thing I want to say is, honestly, there's so many blind spots that we did not hit. If you're a true fan of Aphex Twin, you're going to be like, oh, but you didn't talk much about this, or you got this wrong. Sorry.
You don't even know him.
Yeah, sorry. There's so much fucking shit, and I really just enjoyed, like, what we did find, and, like, I'm happy to continue listening to more in the future, and, like, we probably missed a bunch, and definitely go check out his work for yourself.
There's like enough music to like cover, like, soap operas, how it's just like a continuing story for like years and stuff.
Yeah, like Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, or like, whatever. And it's like there's no way I could have like watched like I don't know, General Hospital. I think
it's like Star Wars. If you're talking about like the
with,
lore,
like the whole
we're getting into like comic book worlds,
like the books and stuff.
Like
yeah,
book world right now.
It's a lot to cover, which is I think if you know like all of it, like I mean, props to you.
Yeah, props to you. You picked a good artist to hone in on.
Yeah,
but holy shit, like
yeah, please
go outside, get some sun. If you heard everything,
please play more shows. I'll watch. I think when I was like first getting, I would look on like Setlist, FM, whatever.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even like songs like from his.
Yeah. I think I mentioned a couple times we didn't talk about his live performances, but they're like not even his fucking songs. They're like they're like new shit. Like he just plays like 2 hours of like new shit.
It's dope. Yeah, I know. Even like when he came to California for those shows, you know, John Frusciante is a big Aphex Twin fan, and he would rarely kind of go out for anything, but. He was spotted at those Aphex Twin shows.
Oh, definitely. I could totally see that.
It's pretty. Yeah,
that's cool.
Maybe we'll do a Red Hot Chili Peppers episode.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Later. We should go to where they recorded like something and record
in LA?
The pod there.
Let's go to the bridge. Let's go under the bridge.
Yeah. I don't know if you have access, but outside they recorded the last song on that Blood Sugar Sex Magic album. It's like a cover of a Robert Johnson song, but they recorded it outside, like, I don't know, on some hill or bullshit.
In LA?
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah, we should record it there. Kind of like, you know, that setting like Tom York and Johnny Greenwood have.
Yeah, they're like performing under a tree.
Yeah, sort of something like
sick.
that.
Yeah.
All right, so.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Is that your last? Any final words?
No.
All right. Thanks, everybody.